awesome day of FileMaker training. I'm Richard Carlton, creator of FMTrain.tv, where every day we are training or getting trained. Sometimes we show up here and we get schooled on the latest and greatest in the world of FileMaker. I want to welcome Jesse Barnum today, who is the creator and the head guy at 360Works. Him and his brother created this really awesome company. He has quite a few amazing products. I'm very excited to use a number of them. As a reminder, while we're today talking about 360Works and the great products they have there, this is a free service, a free channel. And so while you can support Jesse, feel free to support our channel by purchasing one of our training bundles. Even if you're the smartest person in the world of FileMaker, I know all of you here are much smarter than I. Just instead of Patreon, just come here and put a couple bucks in. We greatly appreciate supporting the channel. That way I can afford to pay Nick to actually show up, and Margaret as well. So with that in mind, let's pivot to 360Works. So last time on the TV show, we discussed mirror sync, syncing things with copies of FileMaker, basically offline, remote. You know, you have an offline copy of FileMaker, you're doing data entry and it syncs, or doing server replication, my personal favorite. However, someone brought up a topic of, if I want to work on a FileMaker solution and it's done and I've tested it, or I think I want to give it to my customer, especially customers around the other side of the planet, where like we have a customer that's in Singapore, their FileMaker server from California is really slow, like almost unusable to do like field definitions and stuff like that. So we need to work on it locally, then post a new copy so they can play with it. Or you're a vertical market solution company like Scott Kane, and you want to build an update of the solution and press a button, and then everyone gets the new version. One button press, everyone gets the new version. How could that ever be possible? What sort of weird black magic can we have that would give us that capability? Well, the sorcerer of black magic is Jesse Barnum. He's wearing white today. That's misleading. It's black magic. So Jesse Barnum, can you tell us about how we can make solutions and deploy them easily by using your products?
Yeah, so 360 deploy, it's first of all, I don't think a lot of people realize how long it's been around. 360 deploy started in June of 2017. And at that time, interestingly enough, there was no data migration tool. So 360 deploy did not originally start off life as a wrapper for the data migration tool. It was actually something that we would custom generate FileMaker scripts that you could paste in your solution that would do all these automated imports from one file into an empty clone. Because that was a battle that us and every other FileMaker developer had been fighting for many, many years. And so we got that done in June. I think in July, we found out through the ETS channels that FileMaker had a new tool called the data migration tool, like a month after we finished all this work that we did. And we're like, oh, this is way faster and better than the thing that we just did. So that was 360 Deploy 1. We rewrote it in 2018. 360 Deploy 2. We demoed it at DevCon in 2018. And we basically made it so that instead of writing a bunch of custom scripts that would then import all of your old data into an empty clone, it now uses the data migration tool, which is way faster and better than trying to do it through scripts in FileMaker.
So let me help everyone out here. So just to bring everyone up the same page here real quick, is that data migration tool, the DMT or FMDMT, is a command line tool created by the engineers at Claris. Clay Mackel was a big part of that. We really wanted to thank him for that. Allows you to move gigabytes of data through all the tables to a near what I would call a very similarly designed database. So if you have a solution that you're using it, your users are using it, they're actively adding data to it, you take an offline copy of that file and you add a layout or tweak some stuff, then you want to move all the data over to it rapidly. The data migration tool allows you to take the kind of the master source file, do some command line action, and move the data at extraordinarily high speed to the new clone of the file. Now, to do this, you have to go to the FileMaker server, kick everyone out of the database, close the file, download the file, then do the command line stuff into the new file, then take the new file, post it to the FileMaker server, and then re-enable it. So there's a lot of mechanics with that, right? It's doable. But if you had to do it for like 10 customers or on 10 servers, or you did it every day, right, kind of thing.
You want to do it in the middle of the night.
Yeah. Oh, middle of the night. Who wants to work at 1 in the morning because your customers are asleep, right? Well, when I was younger and I ran RCC and I was 25 or 30, then yeah, that was not a problem anymore. I'm like, that's I want to get my beauty sleep, right? Just like Jesse. I want to be like Jesse, beautiful and getting my sleep in the middle of the night. So anyway, the short version of this conversation is that the data migration tool was really awesome and it gave us the essential elements, but you really needed another application that was going to take it and make it great. Make
Yeah, and I mean,
FileMaker great. Yeah.
and I think, when FileMaker was very young, and we're talking FileMaker 1, 2, 3, 4 days, I think just the assumption was that everybody just worked directly on the live FileMaker server.
Correct.
And I think that time has shown, and software best practices across all platforms have shown that there are many disadvantages. I mean, FileMaker, it's pretty amazing that FileMaker manages to allow you to work directly on a live copy.
Yes.
That's super impressive that it works at all. But it's not a best practice. It's really not. There's a lot of hidden glitches that can happen when you're working. Aside from, like, Richard, you were pointing out, if you're in California and your client's in another country, it's really slow, which costs time, which costs substantial amounts of money.
Mm-hmm.
Not only is it slow and therefore expensive, but there's subtle problems that can happen. Like, for instance, if you're modifying the field definitions and you've added some fields and modified some other ones, people can't create records in that table for the duration of the time that you have the field definitions open. And where that can even compound is, let's say you have scripted operations that go and create new records, as most of our solutions will. If you have turned on error capture, which is a conversation that I would have another day about how I do and don't do error capturing. But if you've turned on error capturing, then your script will silently fail and records won't get created and nobody will know why. And then someday you may or may not find out that it's because you were modifying the field definitions while people were trying to get work done.
Yeah. So doing heavy database development while people are actively really banging away on the file is dangerous. I'm in here doing it literally right now, but it's a small group of people, 3 of them, and I know all 3 are at lunch, so it's a fair game at the moment. But yeah, you need to proceed with caution when doing work on a live file. So if we don't want to do work on a live file, how could we possibly do the work that we need to do, Jesse?
Yeah, so you work on a dev copy, either on your own laptop, or on a dev server, or maybe another copy of the file that's on the production server.
Okay.
There's nothing fundamentally wrong with working on a file that's hosted on a FileMaker server. That's not the problem. The problem is just when you have a bunch of users who are actually doing real work on the file at the same time that you're trying to use it. Yeah.
In fact, I recommend doing development on a FileMaker server.
Absolutely.
Because you're protected against a lot of bad juju. So
yeah, most cases of file corruption happen because people have the file on their own local non-hosted
local
version.
Copy, correct? Yes.
And then you have to force quit or whatever like that. If the file's hosted on the FileMaker server, it's not going to get corrupted. It can't. I've seen cases where files have gotten corrupted when they've been hosted on FileMaker server, but much, 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 much less often than when people have copies on their own, development copies on their own laptop. And anytime something quits or hangs or whatever like that, you run the risk that you're damaging the file, which is not the case if it's hosted on FileMaker server.
Correct. All right. So how do you help us out, and why should we care about what you say?
I'm going to show you what I'm guessing that some of the people that are on this call were also on the Marison call last time.
About at least half of them, I would say, were cross-pollinating.
If you recall, I tried to talk at the very end about the Linux installer. I was in a rush. I didn't do a good job of explaining it. So I'd like to start off by just 360 Deploy, along with MirrorSync and along with Zulu, and along with the majority of our products, now runs natively on Linux, in addition to Mac and Windows. And so I want to kind of do a quick demo to show you guys, if you are running FileMaker Server on Linux, 360 Deploy consists of 2 basic components. There's a server component, which gets installed just like MirrorSync does. It's a background faceless web application service that runs in the background of FileMaker Server. That's how we do our uploads and downloads and call the data migration tool. And then
so you're going to share your screen. You're going to share the screen with us, right?
Yep. And then there's a plugin portion of it. And the plugin portion is what runs on your development computer, whether you're working on the files on your laptop or on the server. That's still your development computer where you're going to do the deployments from. Okay. So the part I'm about to show you is the part that you would do on your FileMaker server. So I've got here, let me open a new terminal window. I'm on my own computer. I'm going to connect into our FileMaker server. I'm in Atlanta. This server is in Virginia. So I'm connected in now. I'm going to open up our Linux installation instructions. You'll have this when you download 360 Deploy.
Okay.
And so I'm just going to follow these steps. I already have 360 Deploy installed on this server, but it won't hurt for me to just do it again. So everyone can see the process. So here I am over in Linux. These are just prerequisites. You need to have Ubuntu 20 or 22.
Okay.
You need to have FileMaker Server installed, and you need SSH installed, which if you're on a Mac, you've already got SSH installed. If you're in Windows, you can download PuTTY. So step one, SSH into your remote box. I've already done that right here. I'm in the remote box. Step two is we run sudo apt update. This makes sure that apt has all the latest versions of everything that we're going to be installing.
Okay.
While that's running, I'm just going to talk onto the next point, which is we're going to install these components. Java 17, which you probably already have on your server because FileMaker Server uses Java 17 as well, but it won't hurt to run it again just to make sure that it's completely up to date. And then also Tomcat 9. So that finished there. Now I'm going to copy and paste this command. Everything's already installed, so this
I
finished
didn't know
very
you
quickly.
you could install multiples, just keep adding the.
Yeah, yeah, it's
I
cool.
did
You
not
can
know
just
that
have
was even a thing. Okay.
you can have a space separated list of all the packages, and it'll
Oh,
resolve all their dependencies at one time, which is nice.
wow. Okay.
The next step here is wget, which is the way you would download a file, and you pop in the download URL here. The download URL is going to be in your email that you get when you download 360 Deploy from us. I have it over in my other window. It's right here.
Okay.
So this is downloading 360 Deploy into my home directory on Ubuntu. It's a zip file.
Okay.
The next step, as soon as this finishes, I'm going to unzip it. And I already had it, so it's just saying, hey, this already exists. I'm going to say, go ahead and overwrite it.
Okay. Oof. Okay. Now it's done.
So that's done. We cd into that folder. Change directories, cd.
Okay.
And then we run the following command. This is the 360. This is the part that we wrote. Everything up till now is stuff that other people wrote.
Okay.
Now we get to the part that 360Works wrote, which is the Linux installer. You can see Will's cool ASCII-mation. What is the host name for the server? This is an important point to note for anybody following along. Don't use the raw IP address here. Things will work better if you put in your real host name, because the SSL certificate won't work with a raw IP address.
Right. SSL certificates are tied to DNS. Yeah. So
Exactly.
your
So I'm going
domain.
to put in our real host name there. It's
All right.
validating this. It's checking. It's going to give me an error. It's not an error message. It's going to give me a warning in just a second saying, hey, it looks like you already have this version installed. Are you sure you want to? That's because I've already done it before. So I'm going to hit yes when that comes up.
So this is
actually,
just to be clear, this is kind of a one-time install. This is not
yes.
something we have to use. This is just like installing it and then we're good, correct?
The only time that you would need to redo these steps is when a new version of 360 Deploy comes out and you want to update that version. And even in that case, you can skip everything except for these steps. You wouldn't need to reinstall Tomcat. You wouldn't need to reinstall Java, any of that stuff. But yeah, if there was a 360 Deploy 4 or 3.5, you would repeat these last few steps. But you don't need to do these steps when you're actually running a deployment.
Okay.
So that's it. So now 360 Deploy is installed on our server. That's part one. And now part two, I'm going to show you, I'm going to quit out of here. I'm all done in the terminal, nothing left to do here. Now I'm back in my, now I'm back in my download directory, my 360 Deploy, and I'm going to open up the file that comes with 360 Deploy. This is the FileMaker database, and I am going to, sorry, I have these left over from some demo prep. So this is what it's going to look like when you first open this file for the first time. You have a list of all the configurations, and a configuration is simply a development server and file and a production server and file.
Okay, stop. Stop. So if I have three servers, three customers okay, I'm Scott Kane and I sell 3 copies of this thing, and each customer has their own server. I'll have 3 configs in here then?
Yes.
Is that what I would have? Okay.
Yep.
Great.
Or if you have, let's say that you have a customer that has a dev server, a staging server, and a production server.
That's 3 servers?
That's 3 servers. It would be 2 configurations, one to go from dev to staging and one to go from staging to production.
Okay. So basically, configuration is a transfer process that will occur.
Yes, that's right. It's a transfer.
It's a transfer.
So
So it's really a configuration for a transfer. Once again, this is the idea of a deployment or a transfer, but it's a one server deployment from
yep,
a source to a destination.
from a
Okay.
source to a destination. That's right. So our dev server is our source. And I'm going to set our dev server. I already have FM starting. So I'm going to use FM starting point as my example file. I'm going to configure the dev location. Now I haven't installed anything on my local computer. There is a plugin component of 360 Deploy, but it's going to install automatically using the install from plugin script step.
Okay.
So right here, I'm just going to hit install, and that's just going to install it from my container. So now the plugin's installed. If I jump over to here, I should have showed you this before I did that, but this wasn't here a second ago.
Okay.
Now it's here because I just hit OK on that dialog. So I already have my files on that Linux server. Let me show you the admin console for that server.
Okay. This is very cool, by the way, because once this is running, Margaret or is Jacob Taylor shows up, because I think Jacob had a couple choice things he wanted to say, but yeah, no, he loves this product.
Yeah, so I've got so there's three ways that you could deploy stuff. You could have the dev file on the same box as the production server, which is what I'm about to demo. You could have the dev file on a different server than the production server, or you could have the dev file on your own offline hosted, laptop copy, which is what we just talked about is maybe not a great idea, but it's really convenient if you're traveling or something like that and you don't have a good internet connection and you want to be able to still do development.
Yeah.
So I've got two copies of the file here. I've got the dev copy and the production copy. They're already hosted on my FileMaker server. So I'm going to jump back to here and I'm going to say, here's my FileMaker server credentials. Notice this is not the credentials for my FileMaker file. We don't need the credentials for the FileMaker file for this to work. I don't think. So I'm putting my credentials. We are, of course, using SSL. I go to next. And now we're going and we're getting a list of the files. Hold on a second. Oh, I put in my credentials wrong.
Try again.
Typing. There we go. That must have fat fingered it. Now we get a list of all the files in the server, which is so we're selecting our development database. That's going to be this dev version right here. And set up the account credentials for the files. I misspoke before. I said you don't need the FileMaker files, but you do. So I'm using the same credentials that we used in our MirrorSync demo last time.
Okay.
This supports, if you are using encryption at rest, we support that.
Yes.
We don't require it. So if you were using encryption at rest, you would check this box here and put in your encryption password. Okay, so I'm done with my dev server. Now I'm going to go to the production server. So I'm going to add the same server because the file's on the same box, but I could put a different server and they could be either physically close to each other or far apart from each other. Since all the credentials are the same, I'm just going to check this box.
Yeah, that's handy.
Now it's getting a list of the files and saying which one is my production one. It's the one that doesn't
kind of
have
like an
dev.
import dialog.
It's very much, conceptually very similar to an import.
Okay.
My passwords are the same. They don't have to be. You might have a different set of credentials for the dev file than the production file, but they're the same. So I'm going to check that box. If I was doing encryption, it's the same. I'm not doing encryption, but this is just saying don't just do whatever we did on dev. But it's cool that you could potentially have them encrypted on one server and not necessarily encrypted on the other server if that's important to you for some reason. Okay, and so now we're done with our dev server, we're done with our production server, and we're ready to do a deployment. So let's take a look at these two files before I do anything. I'm pretty sure that currently these files are identical.
That's no fun.
Let me bring this over to my window here. So here's my dev version of the database. And I think we probably still have, we don't have a lot of data in there right now. And then I'm going to go to my production version of the database.
Okay.
And what I'm about to do now, so these are the same. Currently, they're totally the same. They have the same data, the same. Oh, well, this one actually has an account that one doesn't have. But I'm going to go ahead and.
So this is the right one on the right is the production or development?
Let's see. The one on the left is my development one.
Okay. Okay.
And the one on the right is my production one. You can see I have more records in my production one. We've got some leftover records from a couple weeks ago.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Also got some people from our Kentucky user group that are in there.
Okay, there we go.
And so we've got different data between the two. And I'm going to go to the dev version and I'm going to uglify it a little bit.
Uglify. I got to write that one down.
That's my specialty. I don't make things pretty. I make them ugly.
Yeah, change just foobar the style and stuff. That'll be perfect. Oh yeah, that's awesome.
Okay, so now we can see the less nice version.
Mission accomplished.
Mission accomplished.
Uglification complete. Little dialogue
Check.
pops up. Okay.
Jesse was here.
Yeah. Right, so now we need to roll it out or deploy it. This is Scott Kane. He wants to roll this out. Scott's a vertical market guy. He's on the live stream here probably. Margaret Scott here. So, but yeah, this is the kind of stuff he would need. So he's an SPA guy.
Great. We're going to take this newly uglified development version and we need to get our important changes over here to our production version without losing any of the data in our production.
Yeah, which is good.
If you guys remember the MirrorSync demo from last week, we saw how MirrorSync could basically kind of do version updates. But the way MirrorSync did version updates is by just simply copying one whole file on top of another whole file. That's not what we want to do here. We don't want to wind up with a copy of this file replacing that. We want to wind up with, the programming change that we made over here combined with the data from over here. So I'm going to jump back to my 360 deploy thing, and I'm going to hit deploy. It's not going to work. And the reason I want you guys to all see the messages, so you need to do when they come up.
Only the
360 deploy file should be open during the deployment. Close all the other files and run the deployment, because we're going to get booted out of them anyway since we need to be on the server. So I wanted to show you that message so you don't freak out if it comes up while you're doing it. So I'm going to close these files. I'm going to close this.
So you close everything except the deploy files, what you're saying.
Yes. Okay. Yep. And now I'm going to try this again. Okay, and then this will deploy files from the development server to the production server. Are you sure? You can choose to schedule deployment. I'm going to come back and demonstrate scheduling, because scheduling is really cool.
I'm purring for you.
I'm going to hit OK here. So now what we're doing is we are using the FileMaker server admin commands to create a clone of our dev files. We are then taking the live files, we are closing them, we're moving them into an archive folder so you never lose your old live files, just in case anything goes wrong during the process. You'll have those files, you can get them back. Or if you need to refer to them later in case someone made a stupid bug in the development version. That's another big benefit, by the way, of not working on the production server, is that if you make a terrible mistake and delete a table, you can just go back to the version that you had before. Yeah. Even if you don't discover it until after you've done your deployment, maybe you don't find out during development that you made a mistake and you replace the version on the server, and then users are like, wait a second, what the heck?
Wait. Your rollback preserves the data too? The user data?
The rollback would just get the old file exactly as the old file existed.
But with the latest user entered data set in it.
You could do that. You could set up 360 deploy to basically make the production file your dev file. I'm sorry, make the previous production file your dev file and the current production file your production file.
Well, I'm just saying, if you roll back like a week later, you go, oh my God, I screwed this up. You don't want to lose a week of data entry by a user, so you need to roll back but preserve the data, is what I'm saying.
Right. We don't have an automated, we preserve the old files. We don't have an automated way. It would be kind of cool, actually. I'm going to make a note about that.
What the hell's wrong with you, Jesse? I expect perfection, right?
Well, why do you think I come on these shows to get cool feature requests?
That's awesome. Cool.
Automated rollback. I like that.
Well, the rollback should roll back, but what if you discover it late? Then you want to But then you could run into a deal where people put data into a field that doesn't exist anymore. Whatever. I
Yeah.
mean, there's only so much of only so much you can polish a turd before it is a turd.
But I do
Watch.
like that idea to make it so
Yeah.
that you could have an easy way to say 2 days later or a week later, say,
And
hey, take
Margaret,
the structure of my old file and merge it with the current data.
Kura, yeah. So okay, so Andy's got questions. I'm going to take these, Margaret. If you want to patrol YouTube and Twitch, that'd be great.
They are both pretty quiet, so these are the.
So Andy says a question: how is merging done, especially when Dev 1 changes a field on a layout, then pushes to production? Now Dev 2 works on the Margaret. You want to cross post those to Jesse? Now Dev 2 works on the old version and makes changes on the. You're talking about two different developers, Andy? That's just yes or no on question 1. I'm just working on question 1 right now. Yeah, two different developers. So how do you handle two different developers working on? Right off the cuff, both developers would need to be using the same development file, right? If they're using their own.
Yeah, presumably
separate,
both developers are working on a hosted development server.
correct.
Yeah. At this time, there is no way to merge changes from multiple independent FileMaker databases into each other. Although if Claris ever gives us the ability to patch files from a DDR, that would be possible and super cool.
They've been prototyping that since FileMaker was 17, and it's still not done. My understanding that engineering wants to finish it, and then the management team down there won't give them the.
Oh man, I hope engineering wins that battle because that would be so awesome.
So back to Andy's question. So merging changes from two devs into one file not possible right now. Yeah, no. You need to get a single dev copy going, however you want to do that, and then
if you have multiple devs, it's a really simple thing. You just set up a dev server or a dev file on your production server, and you have them work on that dev file. So yeah, it's not. You're not going to be able to make it work with multiple devs, each with their own copy, but it'll certainly work with multiple devs working on a FileMaker shared server together on a dev file.
And next, Andy's question: is there plans? Oh, Dev 1 makes changes and creates a merge request, and Dev 2 approves the changes, so then merges them in. That's more like a DevOps thing, like a approval.
Yeah, and I mean,
DevOps thing, kind of.
If the question, I think it's basically looking for the equivalent of a pull request in Git. And you could, if you're talking about an entire file, like I want to basically take everything I've done in dev and put it into prod, then yeah, I mean, 360 deploy will absolutely do that. And I'll show you ways that you can script that and automate that.
Andy says yes, the pull request and merge request thing, but it's at a file level because once again,
it's at a file level, right?
That Claris has this. Okay, back up real quick. So if you go up under, you can just show them so we're all on the same page on your screen. Just go up under Tools down to the and just hold there. Save a copy as XML. That right there is a grossly mislabeled thing. That is the materialization process of the Star Trek transporter. We've talked about that, and it's that right there is a preview feature. It's not final, it's not finished, and every time Claris releases an update, it works a little differently. And so it takes a FileMaker file and it's supposed to, with precision, create a serialized the XML code of a FileMaker solution, and that's the we need done and have it like refined and fully completed. So then we can take a FileMaker file and pull out a module. And I say the word module very loosely. You can decide what a module is, a table with these layouts or a layout with these scripts or something. And you can with precision, grab blocks of code out of one solution, stick another solution, and then rematerialize it on the Star Trek transporter pad, and out comes a new file, right? Once it comes out with this XML, basically you're dealing with a text file. A FileMaker file is a text file. They've never finished it. I have no idea when or why, but Andy's sitting here babbling about this, and he's making the point we need this. So
yeah, I mean, if you want the ability to say, I've added 10 new features and I've approved 6 of them, and I want these 6 to be put into production, that's a no-go at the moment. That's a barrier in the FileMaker platform that only Claris can open that up for us.
Yeah,
if you're talking about we have approved everything in this dev file and we want everything in the dev file to now become production, then yes, that is definitely doable today with a tool like 360 Deploy.
Cool. So yeah. That's what we're trying to solve for you folks. All right, so
Now, what you can see here is that
okay.
this merge worked. We've got our new ugly theme, and we still have all of our old ugly people.
Yeah.
Uh,
Nice.
I
Yeah.
include myself in there. I'm right there.
Well, to be honest with you, and that's very valuable. I had an engineer once. Well, he quit and decided to go on staff at a company, and he was doing some work for Cisco Systems. I think it was Cisco, and they built a solution. It was an internal for their executive management team, and his sample data made it all the way into production. And it was Cisco sucks this, that, and the other thing. It was really kind of questionable. And the CEO of the company saw it, and they got hauled into his office. And this was a contractor, right? And I was like nowhere near this, but it's one of those deals where if you have questionable sample data, that has a way of always getting out into the public.
Yeah,
So,
wow. Okay.
Margaret knows that because she named someone Ted Everson or something one time, and it made it into our sample data, or no, in a video, in our video training before it got cleaned in starting point. And someone was taking highlighters to our videos and being offended that
I can really tell that Margaret loves hearing that story. You should tell it on every single time that you're live.
Yeah, no, that's what they embarrass your kids, right? So
I'm looking at her right now, and she's just
I've
like,
done stupid stuff. We all have, but the idea is that your development shenanigans that you use to entertain yourself, which you shouldn't do, but if you're immature like me, then you do that. You don't want the customer to see those, and that this helps prevent that, which is nice.
So we've done that. Now I'm going to go back, and so that seemed like maybe a fair number of steps, maybe not. The cool thing though is that once you've got it set up, it's nothing to do it again. So now I'm just going to go back into my dev file. So now I'm back in my dev file. I'm going to go ahead and restore my original, much nicer layout. And I don't think anybody needs to see me make more changes to use their imagination to figure out what's going on.
No.
The point is that now that we've done that initial setup and configuration, this is all that's needed. You just close this file, like you saw, the files need to be closed. Come back into deploy. Everything's all still there, and you run the deploy again. And so that's it. You just now every time that you talk to the customer and you say, hey, did you get a chance to review my dev changes? Does it all look good? When do you want me to deploy it? And they say, do it right now. It's one click. You come in here, you click the button, you get a coffee, you come back, and you're done. This will vary depending on the size of the database. The data migration tool is very fast, but it's not infinitely fast. So, a 1 gigabyte file will migrate a lot faster than a 100 gigabyte file. But it's way, 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 way faster than the bad old days when we used to have to import using the FileMaker's import feature into a clone. So this is done. What I want to show you now is, let's say your client, you say, how does it look? And the client says, it looks fine. Can you deploy it when nobody's here at 1 in the morning? So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go to a different version of the file that I already have on our Linux box, which is this 360 deploy hosted. And here's my same configuration. Notice, one second, I'm going to clear out the license key on here since we're recording this. I'm going to
we'll fuzz it out for you. We'll fuzz it out.
All right. I'm going into settings here. Notice that I did some stuff that I didn't do previously because it wasn't required. But what I want to do, this is not a requirement, but I noticed that I've got this migration report set to go to demo@360works.com. What that's going to do is that when I run my deployment, I'll get emails when it starts and I'll get emails when it stops, which is great if it's running in the middle of the night and I want to know in the morning if everything worked. So I've set that up and I create this script, or I modify the script, PSOS 360 store deployment. And I take my configuration ID, which is the UUID for this configuration, which is on the screen that I just had up. I paste it in here, and now I can run this script in this file to trigger the deployment. And the way I'm going to do it is not from FileMaker. The way I'm going to do it is from FileMaker Server. So I'm going to come back into FileMaker Server. I'm going to show you my configurations, my scheduled scripts, and I've got this 360 deploy file here. So let's take a look at the settings. It's that hosted file that I just had, 360 deploy hosted.
Oh.
And the script is PSOS 360 store deployment. I don't need a script parameter because I've already embedded my configuration ID in the script itself. And the configuration ID is where all of the stuff is kept about what's my deployment, what's my development, what's my email address, all that kind of stuff. Now, I'm going to run this script manually right now, but obviously, let me pull up my email here so you guys can see my email as this runs. My screen's getting a little crowded now, so I'm going to try to shrink this. Obviously, I could schedule this to run at 2 o'clock in the morning, but I'm just going to go ahead and run it manually right now. Run now, schedule time is running. So I just got an email that comes in here, says 360 deploy report, migration is starting. This will take maybe 30 seconds to a minute. And do we have any other questions while this is going?
Well, you may have asked. Well, we have. I want to go back and make sure we ask and answer to Andy's. But real quick, when you were running this initially, and I forgot to ask this question, the actual data migration tool, is that running it on the server? So you take your devs. That would make sense because that's where the biggest file is with all the data. You don't want to download the data.
What we do is it works fairly differently depending on, remember I talked about this 3 scenarios. One scenario is 2 files in the dev server, sorry, 2 files in the prod server. Second scenario is
2 different servers.
2 different servers, and third scenario is a local file.
Yeah.
In our second and third scenario, we'll automatically generate a clone, zip that clone. If it's on a separate server, we download the clone to our development computer and then upload it to the deployment server. If it's already on our laptop, then we just zip the clone and put it up. But either way, we're going to wind up with a zipped clone of the file on the production server.
So if you're doing this, yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
And then the server side component of 360 Deploy will unzip that file, host those files. I'm sorry, unzip that file, unhost the production file, run the data migration tool on the production box. So it's always happening on the box where all the data lives, and then hosting those files after it finishes. And you can see I got an email here that the migration is finished.
Yeah, that was pretty great.
And so you could set this to run, every night if you just wanted to have some scheduled process where you're like all development at the end of the day gets pushed to a staging server, for instance. That would be how I would probably do it if I had a 3-server deployment. If I had dev, staging, and prod, I'd probably set up a 2 a.m. script every night that moves the latest file from dev to staging. And then everybody can look at it in staging. And then when everybody gives me the okay, then I have a manual script that I schedule to run from staging to production.
Hey, Andy, I want to make sure we're answering the question. Andy's question 3 off of Discord says, when scheduling a deployment, will changes be overridden at the time they have been made or the time they have been deployed? So
it'll be when the deployment runs. If you schedule a script now to run at 2 a.m., then your changes as of 2 a.m. is what will get put onto the server.
Okay, cool.
Okay.
That's a good one. And then he had asked a question about rollback, but he's back to this feature merge request thing, which is just a bridge too far for us, right?
Don't tell us, tell Claris.
Yeah, tell Claris, right? Yeah, no, I know.
And I honestly, that's most of my demo. This is a much faster demo than MirrorSync. I can talk a little bit about pricing and stuff like that, but I think, you guys can. I haven't shown a whole lot of demonstrations of this, but really you guys can use your imagination for what it's going to look like. You make whatever changes you want. You come in here, you click the button, or you run the scheduled script. And
so if you had 5 servers, so that would be 5 potential deploys or transfers. So if you want to go back to your configurations on your screen there, then so you have 2 here, right? So then
so this one is one that I can demo. I set this one up to demonstrate the fact that you can deploy from a local file to a hosted file. And the process is almost identical. The only difference is that it's going to pop up asking for my password because it runs some scripts in the local file to save a local clone. It's not that exciting to watch me do it.
No. I'm just trying to but would I have to push this button 5 times to roll it out? Like if I'm Scott Kane and I have 5 customers with 5 servers, and I say I have my own server, so I have my own dev server, and then he wants to roll it out to his 5 customers. Does he push that to each one separately? Does he press that button, or does he hit a nuke all button? How does that?
So it wouldn't be that hard to add. I don't have a button right now that's like run all configurations. Um, I probably should. You could certainly just create 5 scheduled scripts on the server.
Is this file unlocked right here? This
It
this
is.
deploy?
It's unlocked. You can modify it.
Oh,
And
then you
really,
could roll your own. Just
you
write
could
your
roll
own
your
and
own.
just have
Just
it.
loop
Just
through the
kind of
found set,
yeah.
loop through the found set, and run the deploy script on each one. Yeah, that wouldn't be hard at all. We should do that. I'm going to put that also on my feature request list.
There's 2 for you, right? So, but yeah, it seems to me that Scott's like 5 o'clock. He's done for the day. He feels it's sufficiently well tested. He presses a deploy all paying customers that I love. So, so for him, he'd probably put a checkbox next to him.
Probably modify the
and then
configuration thing to say how recently have they paid me. Do a find for all configurations where payment date is current.
payment day is current, and then it updates to those. No,
Yeah.
I'm being dead serious. Absolutely. If you had a serious solution, that's exactly what you would do.
Let's see. There is one thing that this is not a 360 deploy feature, but it's a nice feature of the data migration tool, is that they were thoughtful. I think this was a really good idea that they did it this way. The accounts, the usernames and passwords don't come from your development file. They come from the production file. In that sense, it's different than the old way of saving a clone and importing into the clone. So what this means is that it's safe for you if you have users on your production file and you create accounts for each new user. You don't have to create those accounts in production and dev. It's okay to create the accounts in production for every user, and then when the migration happens, it'll take all of the scripts, layouts, fields, tables, etc. from your dev file, but it'll take the accounts from the production file. So those passwords are treated like data.
Yeah, which is great. Let's see, other questions here. Discord. Margaret, I'm only watching Discord here. So
not really been questions on the other stuff.
Andy has another question here. It says another more critical question. What makes 360 deploy better except for the UI for it than just copy paste my files on the server, which I can automate pretty easily with an SH file, which I can cron to get the scheduling as 360 deploys doesn't give me a way to have the deployment from multiple devs into one file. But but I don't think you could do multiple devs at all right now at all, right? I don't know that that's a practical. I mean, I would set that one aside because that's not a feature anywhere.
Yeah, I think that right. Echoing what you said, Richard, I agree with you. There's no way currently to merge development from multiple separate FileMaker files into one. And going back to the original half of the question, yeah, you definitely could do everything that I'm demonstrating to you. If you're a pretty knowledgeable user and you know how to zip these files, SCP them, clone them, automate the process, automate the emails. There's no magic.
Let me help.
There's no magic happening here. It's all stuff you can do yourself.
How much is this?
This is $295 for 3 servers. So it's like 2 hours of
not even that. All right. So let me help here. Where is that? That's Andy. Andy, if your hourly rate is less than $12 an hour, then you should roll your own, maybe. Right. It's like I told you last week or the week, whatever that was about MirrorSync. We had an engineer who, I'm not gonna buy MirrorSync. I'm going to roll my own, right? And he may or may not be watching this, watch the recording. If he hears it, he'll know. In fact, a lot of us have done this, right?
Yeah.
And then it was like, he was $40,000 into it, which he couldn't bill back that customer of his own time. And he goes, "That's the dumbest thing I ever said." And
I will say this: it is definitely much more feasible to roll your own version of 360 Deploy than it is to roll your own version of MirrorSync. But in either case, you're going to come out losing on your hourly rate.
All right, Ruben says, so the dollar amount is for 3 servers, unlimited files, unlimited file sizes, question mark?
Yes, if you guys are familiar with 360 Deploy prior to this webinar, we've made a substantial licensing change. We used to have a more complicated, more expensive licensing thing. We had something called the Express license, which was just for a single server and a single solution. We had our enterprise license, which was quite a bit more expensive, and it was just for one server. What we've done now is we've priced it at $295. And that's for unlimited solutions for up to 3 servers. Okay. So we had a lot of confusion and a lot of tech support tickets about the licensing, and people were just unhappy about how it works. So we've really simplified it and we've made it much more affordable. And at this point, I feel like it's something that we sell to we don't throw in 360 Deploy when we do it for our customers. We charge them for 360 Deploy, and we've made it mandatory for almost all of our customers to buy 360 Deploy so
Jacob
that
Taylor,
we
are
can do
you
development.
there? Jacob Taylor, are you there? You wanted to say something about this stuff. I'll give Jacob Taylor a chance to chime in here. He really likes it and encourages it. Ruben says that 3 servers for that price is a steal. It's a deal.
Simplification is hard, but it's worth it. It's like you need to sit down and not just licensing anything. It's much easier to make something long and complicated and hard than it is to come up with something good and small. One of my
Good and
favorite,
small and snuggly. I love it. Yeah.
one of my favorite Oscar Wilde quotes, I think, was something along, I apologize for the length of my letter. I didn't have time to make it shorter. And so it's like simplicity is takes work, but yeah, it's worth it.
Yes. Yeah, it's back to like that Steve Jobs stuff. Is to make it stupid and ugly is easy, but making it beautiful and small and wonderful it takes more talent, frankly.
And by the way, if anybody on the call or anybody watching this has our portfolio license, this is part of the portfolio license. So if you've purchased the portfolio license for your customers, then they already have a license for this. All you need to do is just install it on the server and just start using it. So it's ready to go.
Okay. Stu says, is the license a one-time license or an annual?
It is a one-time license. This is not one of our maintenance products, which means that you buy it once and you own it forever. And if there are major version upgrades at some point, they're just priced a la carte for the major version. It's like the old school FileMaker approach. It's not an annual license. That was a long.
Wow, that makes it really simple, right?
It's just a one-time purchase. Yeah.
What's not to love about that, right? So, okay. Next Tech is kind of an interesting operation. They're either I don't know if it's a father-daughter combination, very talented people. They have a dev file and bringing data from a serve file, but rename the new serve file as a different name. Normally you'd want it the same name so you wouldn't break everyone's shit, right? But
well, that's what we're doing actually in this example. So our dev server, well, hold on a second. This is my Jupyter example. Let me go back to my Linux example. So in this example that I've been doing here, my dev server is the file name is
going to be different.
Yeah, my file has a dev on the end of it. Yeah.
Oh, I get that. Yeah, but if the customer before the deploy has a name, then the name after deploy, you'd probably want the same name so their launchers don't break.
Oh, I understand what you're asking. Like, you're right.
Well, that's what I'm asking. I don't know what the next tech is asking, but
we won't rename production file on the server as part of deployment, if that's the question. You can have different names for the dev and the prod, but we're not going to rename the prod file.
Yeah, because that would break the shit out of everything, right?
Any external file references would break. All web publishing would break.
Yeah, it's bad.
Data API would break. Yeah. Speaking of renaming things, another kind of data migration point is that data migration tool imports based on IDs, which means you can rename your fields, you can rename your tables, and everything will still work correctly. The one exception to that is if you create a new, let's say you had a table called My Table and you renamed it to My Old Table. That would work. Things would import from My Table into My Old Table. But if you then created another table and called it My Table, then the data migration tool would say, well, I see these two things named the same thing. I'll go ahead and use that even though the ID doesn't match. So renaming is fine. If you want something to be dropped into something that's brand new, that's a different ID, then just create a new thing with the same name that the old thing used to have.
Yes. And now we've covered that in our training for the data migration tool, but yeah, that's a good point.
Thank you guys for being on the call.
Yeah, it's awesome. Tomorrow will be Nick Hunter again, right, Margaret? Nick is back tomorrow?
Nick returns.
All right, guys, that's it. Thanks, Margaret.
Right.
See you.
See you guys.
Goodbye, everybody. Y'all have a good one. Got a report of an individual up here who may be a FileMaker license. Well, it's potentially expired. Look at the back of that car right there. Looks like the FileMaker license has expired. Sir, I need you to step out of the vehicle. Sir, step out of the vehicle. Sir!